At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
It's hard to compare it because I always say, like, everywhere you go is beautiful. Part of the beauty is being there and experiencing it, you know. And I think in terms of like mountainous scenery, Tajikistan in Asia was probably the most spectacular.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Hope you're having a good week so far. I know I am. It's been a good week. It's been a lot of work, busy, but squeezing in some adventures here and there, some small ones. Got some to look forward to coming up, which I'm very excited about. I'm sure I'll have some stories, some misadventure stories to tell about those once they happen. But today's episode is a throwback from a few years ago, quite a few years ago actually, with Lyndon Poskitt. This was hosted by Travis. He's into motorcycles, so he did this one. This one's about racing motorcycles around the world, but not just, flying somewhere, shipping your motorcycle there, and then racing and then going back. This is literally riding your motorcycle around the world, 2 races, and in between races, you are riding your motorcycle. So Lyndon's story, Lyndon's adventure is just incredible, and I love when you can mix adventure into something like this, where it has some structure, it has some framework, where he has to be at certain places to race, but in between, it's a total adventure. So you're going to hear about the multiple years he spent on the road doing this, and we should probably do an update with him because it sounds like he's still doing stuff like this and has done some really cool things since this podcast came out, including finishing this adventure, of course. But yeah, we should definitely have him on the show again. I'll have to reach back out. But before we jump right in, I wanted to tell you about the Restoration Depot. They are sponsoring today's show, and they have been just gracious enough to sponsor the show for a few months now, which I absolutely appreciate. It's no surprise that we all need a little more fun in our life. We all need to have an engaging community, a healthy, fun community to be a part of. It's no surprise that that's getting harder and harder as time goes on, with more people working from home, feeling less and less true connection with other people. It's really important that we find ways to do that in our life, and the Restoration Depot is offering that through online virtual classes. A lot of this world is going to be virtual from now on, but that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. And that's where programs like the Restoration Depot come in. They offer classes, interactive classes, live classes about everything from intensati, djembe drumming, yoga, tai chi, meditation, unique parenting classes, mental health education, wellness and essential oil classes, all kinds of stuff like that with live teachers that you can interact with. And you can try your very first class by selecting First Class Special at checkout, and it's only $5. So if a healthy, fun, engaging community is something that you're looking for, like I pretty much am all the time, I would definitely encourage you to check out the Restoration Depot. Heck, you could ride your motorcycle around the world and still go to the same class with the same people every week. That's pretty cool to think about. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Adventure Sports Podcast. Lyndon Poskitt is an accomplished motorcycle racer and mechanical engineer from North Yorkshire in the UK. Although happily employed as an engineer, a hospital stay caused him to rethink how he was spending his time. Lyndon is on the show today to tell us about his current journey called Races to Places, which takes him all around the world on his KTM rally bike. So, first of all, Lyndon, thanks for joining me. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you. It's always good to share my experiences with other people.
Well, I love good motorcycle adventure stories, so this should be a fun conversation. So Getting into it, let's start with you as a kid. You started riding pretty young, didn't you? How did you end up on motorcycles to begin with?
Yeah, I started, well, not that young. I wish I'd have started younger. I started when I was 10 years old. And it was really, my parents were really reluctant to let me have a motorcycle, but I really wanted one. I'd just been watching it on TV. My father wasn't into motorcycles or anything. I just wanted a motorcycle. And so they let me have a trials bike for my 10th, I think it was Christmas around my 10th birthday. And I got a trials bike, and my parents basically said to me, if you can show us that you've got skills to handle a motorcycle on a trials bike, then you can have something faster. Because I wanted a motocross bike, but they weren't going to let me have that. All they could see was broken bones and hospital visits. Yeah, so I got a trials bike, and I actually got very competitive, and that's where I realized how much of a competitive person I was. And I started getting better and wanting to go out every weekend practicing and trials riding, and I just loved trials, and I did it for 6 years. So I didn't actually get onto anything with any speed until I was like 16, 17, really. So.
Well, it's probably a good way to start slow and get the technical skill under you before you do get out there. So they were probably smart to make that call.
Yeah, and it's a way that I recommend to a lot of my friends that are having kids now. It's like, get them a little electric trials bike or something. Keep it slow, let them get balance and get used to riding before you get into anything with any speed. And that, I don't regret it. I mean, I wish I would have started riding earlier, like when I was 4 or 5 years old or something. But it was a really good, solid foundation. And now, like, balance is so good. Your balance becomes so good when you do trials riding that you just don't even think about riding the motorcycle anymore. You can concentrate on other things like navigation when you're rallying. So.
Yeah, exactly. The motorcycle skills become second nature.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about trials, just for those that might not understand what the trials riding is.
Yeah, trials riding is it's all about low speed maneuvering over obstacles. So it's just, getting over logs and rocks and climbing waterfalls and all kinds of things like that. But typically it's all at speeds under like 20 miles per hour. It's just, it's all about balance and skill at getting up obstacles that are slippery or misshaped or something like that. So yeah, it's a really good base skill to
absolutely.
have.
Yeah, my son, I got him into riding dirt bikes at 10 years old. He's 12 now, so he's been doing it for 2 years. And he's also recently picked up mountain biking. And I keep telling him on the single track trails that we ride is that their skills on the mountain bike that you're developing now will translate perfectly into riding that dirt bike quickly and safely, and allow you to enjoy it a lot more than you might have in the first place. So I completely agree with that methodology for sure.
And I did a lot of BMX, mountain biking, all kinds of stuff like that, just to train when I couldn't go on my motorcycle, just to practice balancing and all stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about competition then. So you started riding at 10, you started competing in trials, and then you graduated to ultimately competing in races like the Dakar Rally and stuff like that. So let's go into that a little bit. How did you end up there, and then how is it you ended up on the road now?
It took a long time to get to the Dakar Rally, and I was 32 years old when I did the Dakar Rally, and I look back at all the things that I did in the past, and now it's apparent that it was just a clear journey to get to the Dakar Rally, and that wasn't in my mind that I could ever do the Dakar Rally. I just, I love motorcycles, and I've raced in 7 different disciplines of motorcycle now, or competed in, should I say. So I've done like trials, motocross, enduro, supermoto, desert racing, road racing. So I've done a bit of everything, and I did all of those in the run up before doing the Dakar. So, I think my favorite probably was supermoto racing. I raced supermoto, for 3 years in Great Britain, did a little bit in Europe as well. And it was really, I'd done a bit of trials, a bit of motocross, a bit of enduro, supermoto, road racing, and then I moved to the USA, and I moved to Texas to work for Lockheed Martin as a contractor for a few years. I was an aerospace engineer, and that was when I was 25, something like that. And when I moved to Texas, I basically wanted to do some traveling, so I bought myself a 950 Adventure, and I started a KTM 950 Adventure, and I started traveling a bit. And it was while I was in the USA that I did my first desert race, which was the Baja 1000 in 2007. So like 9 years ago now, 8 or 9 years ago was my first desert race, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, this is like brings everything together. Like it's got the speed, it's got the technical parts, it's got riding in all different places, it's got night, it's got day, it's got everything. Like, and I love this stuff, you know. And that's how I realized that I really wanted to do more desert racing. So when I didn't do much more in the US, but when I then got sent back to the UK, or should I say my job expired here and I went back to the UK, and I started racing rally and did the UK Rally Championship, did some European events, and then it was apparent that, okay, I need to make this happen. It's a dream I've wanted for so long. Like, I've got to go do the Dakar Rally, and I started putting it into a place, you know, and it's just a massive machine. Like, trying to understand for the first time how to even get there is a mammoth task. And eventually I put it together and went and did it, and thankfully I had a successful race, and that was kind of the pinnacle. That was like the top of everything I'd done. And so then I get onto the story about, well, how did you end up traveling then? So I did the Dakar Rally. I wanted to do it again. I had a successful race, finished 46th overall. I got a top 10 stage finish, and my plan was to go and do it again, but my bank balance definitely wasn't going to let me do it again.
It's not cheap, is it?
No. So I decided that, okay, it's not realistic to do it again yet. I need to do something different. So my plan was to do something I haven't competed in before. So I decided to do some extreme enduro. So I started to train at extreme enduro, and I was planning to do Red Bull Romaniacs in 2013 in the expert class. So I was training pretty hard, doing some crazy stuff. And one of my friends at work says, you need to be fit for this game. Like, you should start running. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really into running. I'm quite a well-built guy. I don't really run well. And he's like, I can train you to run well. I was like, okay. So we started to run together, and he said, hey, you should do your first marathon. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do a half marathon. So we got set up to do this marathon, which a week before Red Bull Romaniacs. And I didn't train as much as I should, and I was busy getting the bike ready for Romaniacs, and I just kind of blew it off. Oh, I can go do it, no problem. And I'm really competitive, so I got to the morning of the race, and I wasn't feeling too good. I had a headache, and I just thought, it'll be right once I get going. So I got running, and I got to 11 miles, and I was on my personal best, and I was chasing like the next person in front of me because I'm really competitive. And I thought, I don't really feel too well at all, and I started to trip up over curbstones and stuff, and that's the last thing I remember. I was completely out, and you know, I owe my life to the paramedics that kind of brought me around at the side of the track and got me to hospital quickly. And I was 9 days in hospital, and I was in a bad way, and I basically just completely, my mind was stronger than my body, and I just completely overdid it. And yeah, I mean, daft as it sounds, almost killed myself. So I missed Red Bull Romaniacs, and I was lying in hospital thinking, well, that was a close shave. Like, what do I want to achieve out of life before something like that happens again? And I was like, I've always wanted to go riding a motorcycle around the world, but I probably can't do it. So I started looking on the internet and reading about blogs of people that have done it, and how much does it cost, and how cheap can you do it, and thinking about the bike that I wanted to use and everything. And I just made the decision there and then that I've worked for 17 years and I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go do something different. I want to go and experience life and travel the world. And so I'm going to sell everything that I own and go and do it. And that's how it came about. So it's a long story, but that's how it came about.
No, what a great story, though. I love the fact that you ended up in the hospital, that's not a good thing, but it really it sounds like it made you pause and think, you know, in an already busy life. You're doing all these races, and I mean, the Red Bull Romaniacs is not an easy race. You don't walk into that lightly. So
No.
you got all of this going through your head and this preparation and everything, and you hadn't been able to stop and actually ponder what it is you want to do life. So it actually slowed you down and led you in a direction that seems pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I look at everything that happened before the decision to do this, and it just all kind of falls into place. There was numerous things that happened, and it just fell into place. And I realized it's just time to stop and think about what you want to achieve. I would encourage anyone to do that because, time just rattles by. And when I thought about it, wow, I've been with the same company for 17 years. Like, wow, that's a long time.
Right on. Okay, so you've decided to ride around the world. You put together, on paper at least, your dream bike. First of all, what's the bike that you chose to go on, and how did you come about it?
So the bike that I chose, I'd raced the Dakar Rally on a 450 Rally KTM, a factory rally bike, and I really, really like the chassis of the bike and the suspension and the setup and how the bike works in all the sort of off-road conditions that I like to ride. And I realized the bike was light because it was a single cylinder, and I'd been riding a KTM 950 through Morocco and off-road and all over the world. I've ridden it through Baja and Mexico, Copper Canyon, and all over the place. And I just realized that I wanted something newer than my 950 Adventure, and I probably wanted something lighter so I could go to more places on my own without worrying about not being able to pick the bike up or getting stuck or something like that. So I knew it was going to be a single cylinder, which is a radical change for me because I was well known for like riding big twins and stuff. And so I decided that it was probably going to be a rally bike chassis because I like it so much. And the previous model to the 450 was a 690, so I started scouring around to find one of those, and I found a well-used one and thought, right, I'm going to get that and totally rebuild it. I need to modify a lot of things. You can't fit a luggage rack to the 690 Rally, so I need to change the rear fuel tank and fit a luggage rack and modify this, that, and the other and all this stuff. And it just started to come together like that, really. And it took me 4 months from getting the bike to having it ready to go on the trip, and that was with a full rebuild, like everything. So... and working at the same time. I still had my job at that time. So,
right, yeah. And you did all this rebuild yourself. And when we talk about rebuild, it's not you're not dropping parts off at the shop. I mean, you have some pretty serious mechanical skills.
Yeah, I just did everything, the whole bike, nut and bolt rebuild from the ground up, everything, and just built this bike which got called Basil. As I lost my grandfather as I was kind of just shortly before this trip, and long story short, his private number plate ended up on my bike. So I named the bike after him, and I've been carrying that license plate around ever since. So.
That's cool. I like that. It's very fitting.
Yeah.
So why did you end up calling this Races to Places?
Yeah, another long story, I'm afraid. I wanted to go traveling around the world and riding around the world, but I had a real love for racing motorcycles, and I think deep down I didn't want to stop racing, but I'd made the decision to stop racing. And then it was when I went to visit the guys at adventurespec.com, are a good company that have helped me with my racing for years. And we've worked together on various projects like making DVDs, riding through Morocco, and we've just like collaborated as good friends and kind of partners on various projects. And I went to see them to say, look guys, I know that we've worked together so much in the past, but I'm going to stop racing. I'm going to go traveling around the world. And they were like, why are you stopping racing? And I was like, well, I don't know, really. It's like, and we got discussing it, and then we just said, yeah, I suppose we could race and ride around the world. That would make a great story. And I've got the perfect bike for it because I wanted to carry on racing, really. So I've got a 690 Rally bike. And that's how it was born, really. And I went home that night and started thinking about different names, what it would be called and stuff. And yeah, it just fell into place. It was going to be called From Races to Places because I was going from racing and everyone knew me for racing to traveling to places, and because it rhymed, I was just like, oh yeah, let's call it From Races to Places. And then after the discussion with Adventure Spec and a few friends and family and stuff, I decided to drop the from and say, okay, I'm going to call it Races to Places, and I'm going to ride a motorcycle around the world and race it as well.
So you say you're going to race the bike in races around the world. So what kind of races have you been participating in? And I have to point out, you've been on the road for a good, probably 2.5 years now?
Yeah,
you left spring of 2014.
2.5 years at the end of this month. And I've done 6 international races. So, or is it 5? 5 maybe, yeah. So I've done the Hellas Rally in Greece, which was the European race I chose to do. International Rally of Mongolia, which was the Asian rally I did. I did the Fink Desert Race in Australia. And then I did the Baja Rally in Mexico, Sonora Rally in Mexico, and they're the 5 that I've done on the trip. And all of them on the same bike other than one. The Baja Rally I did on a 450 because I'd committed to do the race with the race organisers, but I just didn't get to the point where I wanted to be on my trip to ship my bike to Mexico to race. So rather than miss out on the travel opportunities in New Zealand and Australia, I decided to leave my bike there, fly to USA, do the race, and then go back and carry on traveling. And that was a big change to the trip. But again, it was the best thing I did because I had a great time in Australia and New Zealand after the rally, traveling around.
So you have this KTM 690, this bike that you've outfitted to be able to travel on. So for those that aren't familiar with motorcycle travel, I mean, we're not just talking a race bike that he's riding around the world on. You have bags on it, you have your luggage, you have this thing, suspension and seat set up to actually be comfortable and to be livable on the road. Yet you're taking the same exact machine and you're putting it into these races up against bikes that are truly race bred. These are bikes that are meant just for that kind of race. So how did that go over with people that you're up against?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone's always really interested as to, well, why have you got a big metal rack on the back of your rally bike? And it's like, well, that's to carry my luggage. Yeah, but take it off for racing. Well, yeah, but it takes me like 20 minutes to get it off and get it back on again. Like, I may as well just leave it on, There's no advantage from taking 5 kilograms of, all right, there's a tiny advantage, but I'd rather just leave it on. And same with a lot of the stuff like, GPS mount and all the stuff I use for traveling that you don't really need for racing. Usually just leave it on. And yeah, people... I remember pulling up to Rally Mongolia, and actually one of my best friends now, Yuji Shinohara from Japan, is like the first time I met him was at Rally Mongolia because I pulled up to the start of the race and I had all my bags on the bike, and it was there, and for him it was like, well, who's this guy that's just rolled up on a rally bike with all this luggage on, and why has he got all the luggage? And then he started talking to me. And then after realizing that I'd ridden all the way from the UK, he was like blown away and wanted to know more and kind of wanted to be part of it. And as it happened, we ended up traveling together in Japan. It was really good fun. But I think generally people it's just not the norm. The norm is to have your bike shipped to a race event, race it, and then go home and go back to work. Whereas for me, the norm for me is to ride to the start of a race, transform the bike, race, transform the bike back again, and then ride to the next race. I don't fly anywhere. I just ride. And it's hard for people to kind of fathom it out how you do it, but it's a lot of hard work. I'll say that. Like sometimes I wish it was easier than it is.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's one little good bit about that is that you can deal with time change a little bit, as you're approaching that race and getting ready for the race. You can plan ahead and get there, and your body can deal. But at the same time, you're riding the same bike the whole way. That's got to be pretty exhausting. And then to go enter one of these races where they're obviously highly competitive, that's going to be tough on you.
Yeah, and it's really tough on the bike as well. I mean, it is tough on me. It's tough on the bike. But the bike more than anything, like I have to hold my hand up and say, there's always something wrong with the bike. There's always something needs doing.
Right.
Whether it's paint coming off, whether it's plastics broken, whether it's the license plate gone missing, some electric's not working, a wheel bearing on its way out, engine needing something. There's always something needs doing. You can't people say to me, oh, but surely if you chose something like a 1200 GS, it'd be much easier. And it's like, no, I've spoken to people on those bikes, and like, if those people took those bikes on the tracks that I take my bike on, it'd probably be twice as bad. Like, I've ridden 55, 60% off road of my trip so far. So the bike gets a hammering. So sometimes when I get to the races, I have to race with like steering bearings that are on the way out and stuff. I just don't have time to do it all. You've got my ability to put up with like less than normal conditions of the bike has become really great. Like I can deal with anything almost.
Yeah, I'll bet at this point you just pretty much expect anything can happen too, and just take it and roll with the punches when it does, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're essentially unsupported, right? You're out there riding yourself. Anything that breaks, you're fixing. You're maintaining the bike at stops, and you're even doing your own filming, right?
Yeah, that's right. I do everything myself pretty much. I've travelled with a few different people just for short term. I travelled a few months with a guy called Lucas from Austria across Europe and into Asia. And then I went on my own all the way down to Australia. And then from pretty much all of the Americas and Canada and Alaska I did on my own. I spent a few days with an old friend that I'd met in Asia, hiker, German guy on an Africa Twin. I actually met him in New Zealand and we did a few days together as well. But predominantly, I would say 80% of my trip now has been on my own.
And like I said, you were filming, so I wanted to bring up your YouTube channel. You and Adventure Spec you have a YouTube channel filming your entire Races to Places journey. So how's that going?
Yeah, it's going really well. I have to say a massive thanks to Adventure Spec and anybody that watches the series to really, because if it wasn't for Adventure Spec, the video series wouldn't be there. And likewise, I suppose, if it wasn't for me, because I do all the filming, but just the actual logistics of getting what I film professionally edited and getting it on YouTube is not a small task. It's a huge task. And I think we've got 65 episodes out now on YouTube, and some special features, all professionally edited. And I'm really happy with the series. We've got over 10 million minutes watched now on YouTube, which is better than I ever imagined. Like, it almost started for a bit of fun in the beginning when I started filming, building my bike in the garage and all stuff like that. And it's like kind of, well, not gone out of control. It's a good thing, but it's really just, it's starting to escalate now. More and more people are starting to see it. Thanks to everyone that shares it, because the more people share it, the more people get to know about it, and the more people watch it. And it's come to a point where we've released about 50% of the footage that I've filmed so far. So there's another 65 episodes filmed in the bag, ready to be edited and released. But we're at a point now where I've spent so much money on it, and Adventure Spec have invested a lot of money as well. And we really need to try and get some help from other people, which is why we started the Patreon channel, which is basically, Patreon just allows people to join as a patron and offer a small amount, a big amount, however much they want, towards the issuing of more material. So they basically, like, if you want to pay 50 cents towards every episode that gets released, we'll set a target that says when we receive up to $400 per episode through donations, we'll do something extra. So we'll either release more minutes per month, we'll remove adverts, which actually we've already done. We've removed YouTube adverts now. So we hit the first target, which was, I think, $150 per episode through donations. And then we said, okay, we'll remove the YouTube ads. So there's no YouTube ads on new YouTube films of mine going on YouTube now. So you can just go straight into watching what you went to watch. So everything that people donate is going to go straight back into the pot. And all it's going to do is mean that you're going to get more episodes faster. So there's no like profit being made for anything. It's all just getting ploughed straight back in. So the whole Patreon thing, it's probably need to advertise it a little better, because a lot of people I meet and tell about Patreon, they say, "Oh, I didn't even know about it." But it's a fine line between like ramming it down people's throats and just letting people know about it. And we hope that people do see the links on the videos now that say, do you wish to support this series, please contribute here. So.
Yeah, and hopefully people do. I mean, you guys have been doing a great job with this series. I've been watching it, and I'm really looking forward to the part of the series where you come through Colorado, through my neck of the woods.
I filmed all that, yeah.
Yeah, good. I can't wait to see that. But you guys are doing a good job, and you're right, the ads aren't there. So We go onto YouTube and we get a lot of content on there, and it's easy to take that for granted. It's all free, but somebody had to bankroll that and pay for that somehow. So I would definitely request the listeners to go on and check out your channel if you guys are into this kind of world travel, and you don't have to be into motorcycles, just world travel, and get some inspiration to go do something like this. And go check out the YouTube channel and pitch them a few bucks on Patreon. I love to see these things born like this and things that keep going, because the public can sit there and help just by throwing a little bit of pocket change at you.
Yeah, and it's all the episodes are free. So whatever people choose to contribute, the product, whatever comes out of the channel, will be free. It's continue to be free. It's just a way of people showing their appreciation for the effort that's gone into it, and hopefully bring more to YouTube, because that's what we want to do. I mean, I look at where I'm at the moment. Like, I'm currently sat in the USA, ready to head into Mexico. And we haven't even got to Australia yet on my video series. So, there's so much more to be edited, and I can't wait to get it all edited and get it released, because there's so much good stuff to come that I filmed in Australia, New Zealand, and through Indonesia, and all of North America, Canada, Alaska, all of it. So I look forward to bringing all that out on YouTube as well.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to following you and seeing it myself. So, well, let's talk about the route that you've taken. You left the UK, like we said, back in the spring of 2014, and you had a little bit of a rough start down at the Hellas Rally. So tell us about that. What happened there?
Yeah, I did. Probably less than 2 weeks. I think probably only a week into my trip. That's what set the start date, was that I needed to do the Hellas Rally. Was my first race on the trip. So I was going to ride from the UK to Greece, race the Hellas Rally, and then continue across to Asia. And that didn't quite go to plan. On day 3 of the Hellas Rally, I dislocated my shoulder, which put me in a lot of pain. And worst of all, I didn't realize that it was dislocated. And I'm a pretty determined guy, and I carried on racing like 200 and some kilometers to the end of the stage, knowing that something wasn't right. Every time I hit a bump, there was a sharp, like somebody was stabbing a knife in my shoulder. But I just kind of thought, it's all right. I can still open the throttle and stuff. It'll be okay. And then eventually got to the end, got it sorted out, went for an X-ray at the hospital, and they said, okay, it's all back in place and everything. Nothing to worry about now. It's just you will have some soft tissue damage. You need to rest up. So I went back to the rally headquarters thinking that I was going to get on the bike the next day and go racing, until I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, needed to go to the bathroom, and tried to get out of bed and was almost sick with the pain. Then I realized, I'm not going to be riding today.
Maybe time off is a good idea.
Yeah, so it was the first rally that I've never finished, and I was really, really annoyed that it was due to injury. And I ended up taking a couple of weeks off to rest, and then I didn't have time to fly home to get any surgery or get anything done. So I just wanted to do my trip because it's what I'd set out to do. So I just carried on riding all the way across to Mongolia, where my next race was in Mongolia, and I carried on and I did that race in some minor discomfort, but it was getting a little bit better by then. And then I continued south to Australia, and I think by the time I got to Australia, my shoulder was starting to heal, which was about a year after it was first injured. So.
Okay. So you left UK, went to Greece, and then Mongolia, and then down to Australia. Where have you been after that to date?
So I went I rode all the way down through Asia, did loads of stuff in Asia on the way to Australia. Some great filming and stuff I did down there. And then Australia, I did 32,000 kilometers around Australia. North, south, east, west, crossed the centre twice, loads of off-road. Really had a good time. Went to Tasmania, and then I crossed over to New Zealand and did 15,000 kilometers around there. North Island, South Island, pretty much every off-road track I could find in the South Island I did. And then I shipped to America, where I rode down to Mexico to race the Sonora Rally. Finished 5th in the Sonora Rally, and then I rode all the way up to Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, and then came down from there and went up to the Arctic Circle in Canada to Inuvik, and then worked my way back down through Canada. And then I picked up the Continental Divide and then a load of backcountry discovery routes across the USA. So I just worked my way down from Montana, Idaho area, all the way down to New Mexico, Texas, to where I am now in Texas, in El Paso. I just worked my way down, like using Continental Divide, backcountry discovery routes, well-known adventure rides, just piecing them all together to make up a route, really.
Oh, very cool. So you actually went north to south through Colorado then. Did you actually follow the actual the backcountry discovery route for Colorado?
Yeah, I started a bit of it in the north, and then I took a detour across to Denver. Went to see Woody's Wheel Works and some friends over there, and then I went back and picked up the route south again. And then I pretty much followed it all the way down until I got to. I did a load of passes. I went down to where did I go? Salida. So I worked my way down to Salida, doing a load of fun stuff around there. And then I sort of headed west across and did all like Engineers Pass and all that Black Bear Pass and that region around there. The famous Alpine Loop and stuff like that.
Right.
That was really great. Riding around there was awesome. And I was with my friend from the UK. He joined me for 4 weeks on a rally bike as well. My friend Eddie from the UK. And so it was really nice to travel with someone for a change. You know, I spent a lot of time on my own, so it was nice to be with someone again. We had a great time. We both ride very similar. We both race. So we both enjoy riding fast. So we had a lot of fun. And then I did some road book riding and training close to Salida, southwest of Salida, and then again picked up the backcountry discovery route. But then I peeled off and went across to Utah and spent some time in Utah before heading south again.
Very cool. Yeah, that area through the San Juans, the whole Engineer Pass Alpine Loop area is beautiful. We just finished that this summer. I have a F800 GS that I used on that, and it's just a gorgeous area. So what I wanted to ask you, having seen this much territory, how does that compare to what you've seen around the rest of the world on your ride?
Yeah, it's really... For me, Utah was probably one of the most spectacular places I've ridden. The places that I rode in Utah were really out there, and found some awesome places. And the whole scenery thing just like blew me away, where you're totally on your own. There's no one else around, and all you can see is these massive rock formations and, big valleys and all sorts as far as you can see. And that was like really spectacular. Colorado is also beautiful, and there's more places in the world a little bit like Colorado. I think like Kyrgyzstan was very green and rolling hills and awesome scenery and views. And I can relate that to some places like Colorado as well. It's hard to compare it because I always say like everywhere you go is beautiful. Part of the beauty is being there and experiencing it, and I think in terms of like mountainous scenery, Tajikistan in Asia was probably the most spectacular, because I was riding at like 4,500 meters, and the scenery around me, the mountains around me were at like 7,000 plus, with big snow crevices on them, and that was really spectacular. But I do think Utah took some beating, if I'm honest. Like Utah was.
Yeah, Utah is absolutely amazing. And I assume you're talking about the Moab area by the description of the rocks. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm taking my mountain bike out there in another week here, and just look forward to it and ready.
We spent 3 days we just camped out in Moab, and we just did big loops out of Moab, and it was just awesome, like unbelievable scenery.
Yeah, it is like nothing else out there. Well, it's cool you mentioned Tajikistan. I asked that question because I'd like to know where else, overseas, I would like to point my front tire and go ride someday. So I'll have to go check that out.
For the problem with like places like Tajikistan is it's a ride through it kind of thing. It's not well, you can explore around it, but it was kind of a ride through for me. The place I would always recommend to people is South Island, New Zealand, like because you can fly there, you can hire a bike, you can ride for 2.5 weeks and do pretty much the whole of the South Island. And it's amazing. I mean, everything from glaciers to swimming in the ocean, you've got everything there. It was really nice with South Island, New Zealand. Well, the North Island was too, but I really enjoyed the South Island.
Yeah, that's another destination I need to get to. My wife has been over there and did some bungee jumping over there while she was there and absolutely fell in love with it. So one of these days I got to get down there.
Not doing the bungee jumping. I should have done that. I went to one place. And I looked at the sort of valley that you jump off this bridge, and I just like, I don't really need to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. I think it was in Taupo, New Zealand. Yeah, and that was supposed to be, at least at that time, it was the highest over water bungee jump you could take on. So
yeah, I rode past it, but I didn't really feel like stopping and jumping off it.
Next time, you got to try bungee jumping. That is an absolute blast. I've done that before up in British Columbia. You definitely got to try that one next time you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Introducing Force Factor Fundamentals. Exclusively at the Vitamin Shop, these men's health essentials have clinically studied ingredients like BioPurine for enhanced absorption. Yohimbine, pine bark, and L-arginine can help you strengthen blood flow and heighten passion with doses that may bring you the results you crave. Now you can save 20% on Force Factor, including the fundamentals at the Vitamin Shop. Get these men's health game changers in your life at any The Vitamin Shop store or VitaminShop.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed in 2020. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
All right. Well, we talked about a time when things didn't go bad with or didn't go right with the Hellas Rally and dislocating your shoulder. What about your most amazing experience on this journey? 2.5 years and many, many, many miles. What would you say the highlight has been so far?
That's really hard to say because there's so many highlights. I think in terms of racing, it was coming second at the Dakar Rally. That was pretty amazing because I was on the big rally bike and, nearly everyone else was on enduro bikes, and to muscle that thing through and get second place was a really nice feeling. And to be only like 17 minutes off the leader, I was kind of gutted I couldn't push a bit more and get the win, but I was happy to get second and I didn't expect it. But I think in terms of traveling, the most memorable experiences for me are things like when I've been invited into people's homes, like complete strangers, like in the middle of, like in Tajikistan in the mountains, when you get invited into somebody's house that doesn't speak English and they're offering you food and they don't want anything for it. They just want to understand who you are, where you're from, what you're doing here, and to just meet somebody from a different country with a different color skin and a different appearance and different hair color, and it's just, for them, it's just amazing. They obviously don't see people that often going through those places. And some experience. Other things I can think of is camping on the remote beaches. Just pulling onto a beach and camping, and there's nobody about, and you just make your own dinner and you just have a walk up the beach, and you just I'm actually in the middle of nowhere, and I never even knew this place existed. And if I hadn't traveled around the world, I'd have never found it. So, those types of things.
That's cool. Well, you're definitely a busy guy. I mean, I caught up with you on the way back from Japan. So after you had come through this area and headed back down to Texas, like you mentioned, you got on a plane, went over to Japan, and rode a couple races over there, right?
Yeah, I did a 2-day national enduro in Japan. For KTM Japan, I got invited over there to race. And that was a really great experience. I mean, it was I'm actually making a special feature about it, so there's a video coming out about it as well. It was really great to ride enduro again. It was 4 years since I threw my leg over an enduro bike and raced it. So it was really nice to go and race an enduro bike again. And then from there, I went to China, which was my first time to China. And I was a guest rider at a T3 competition, which is a little bit like the GS Challenge, where they have teams of 3 KTM riders, and it's teams of 3. It's organised by KTM, and they go through an obstacle course, and they're timed on the slowest rider. So it's when all 3 get to the finish line, that's the time they get. And I went as a guest rider there and did some demo laps and hung out with all the riders and went practicing and riding up in the mountains with them. And it was a great time, and just nice to be in China for the first time as well. And that was on a big bike. That was on 1190R. And then flew back to Texas to pick the bike up, do a load of work on the bike, and then get back on the road again.
Right. Yeah, definitely busy. So do you have support dealing with the carnets and the visas, or did you just have to put all this together and just be really good about sticking to the route that you had laid out? Because, I mean, these things, at least the visas, they expire, at certain points. So you have to...
I do it all myself. The hardest part was the bit across to Russia. So from the UK to Russia, there's a lot of visas. But it took me 2 months to get them all together, and you plan your trip around your visas. So if the longest you can get a visa is 3 months, then what you will do is you'll just say, right, these are the countries I want to travel to, and you overlap the visas, so you've got option of staying a bit longer in one country than the next. You don't put them all together, because if anything happens, then you can't do anything. So you just overlap them, and I think only once I had to kind of rush out of a country, and that was in Tajikistan, because my visa was running out. But generally it was no rush. It was just an enjoyable ride, timescale set by what I planned to do. But since I got to Russia, once I got out of Russia, and Russia was the hardest visa to get, because I got a 1 year multiple entry business visa, because I wanted to go into Russia in 3 different places. So that's the only way to do it. But after I'd got out of Russia, I just play it as I go along. I kind of figure out, I'm going to cross into so-and-so in 3 weeks' time. I better have a look and see what I need to do, and then look it up on the internet, and, I need to go to the embassy and find the nearest embassy, go there and just figure it out. I mean, what seems like a massive deal before you set off on one of these trips, after a year, 18 months on the road, you're just like, visas, carnets, like, you can sort that out. DHL will help you get a carnet from, A to B in 3 days. Like, everything it's no big deal. Like, I'm sat here now in Texas with a carnet that's expired. I've got a new one. I went to the customs office to try and get it stamped over, and they couldn't do it. And normally people be freaking out about that, and I'm just like, it's just a carnet. It's just a piece of paper. I mean, I'm going to get it sorted in the next few days. No need to worry about it.
Well, that's funny. I imagine a trip like that just kind of beats it into you. It's just one of the things you deal with on the trip. I mean, before heading out, like you said, you're just kind of stressing about this stuff and worrying about whether you're going to get all the paperwork together in time, and if you have them staggered the correct way so that you can make the trip as you planned it. But like you said, you just get into it, and eventually you just deal with it. You roll with the punches as you go.
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
So you're in El Paso now, and you're ultimately heading south to the 2017 Dakar Rally for January, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Big plans to do the Dakar again. I never thought in a million years that I would end up doing the Dakar again. I thought it was done. But I was riding along in Australia last year, and I remember just thinking, like, it was about November time last year, what am I going to do when I get to the American continent? Because in South America, I need to do a race, because I want to do a race on every continent. That's the whole idea. And there's not that many races to choose from. And timing-wise, looking at my schedule, long distance, makes sense to do the Dakar. But do I really want to do the Dakar again? I'm like, yeah, I really do. And I was like, right, well, I know as well as anyone, because I've done it before, one of the biggest parts is deciding to do it in the first place. Like, people always ask me, what's the hardest part of your trip? And I always say, the decision to do it in the first place. What was the hardest part about Dakar? The decision to do it in the first place, because once you commit to it and you're going for it, you're going to do it. You're going to achieve it. And so really it was just about committing to achieving that goal and doing it again. And, I worked hard at it. I worked hard at many different options about how to do the race. And I decided to do it Malimoto to save money, and also because I can manage it all myself. So I don't have to worry about a team. I don't have to think about a team. I just got myself to deal with. And while it's going to be really hard work, it was an extra challenge, and I wanted to do it unsupported again. So last time I did it with a team, the Dakar Rally. This time I'm going to do it all on my own. So I'll be doing all my own servicing and tyres and everything. So it is going to be different this time, and harder. But that's what it's about. I mean, it's no good making it the same as last time. I'll make it different, and I want to make it a cool story as well for people to follow. So that's what I'm planning to do.
Right on. Well, good luck with that. I plan on following along and seeing how well you do. And taking 5th in the Sonora Rally and 2nd in Baja, then I think you stand a pretty good chance out there. It'd be neat to see.
My pace is good. I just need to keep it together and don't get over my head and don't have any crashes and don't get lost. All the things that you need to do as a rally rider, that we all know that we all go out there and push harder than we should. So I just need to just tone it back a little bit. And my absolute number one aim is to finish. And I'd really like to win the Malimoto class. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably one of the harder aspects about it. You're obviously a very competitive person, so how do you lay off the throttle just a little bit to make sure you're going to get through the race, especially being unsupported and knowing that once you get into the rest points that you still have work to do.
Yeah.
And then to survive the thing so that you can continue on with your races to places trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try.
Well, you've done it so far, so I imagine you won't have any problem making it. So you're going to do the Dakar in January, and then you're not done with races to places. So where do you head from there?
From there, I'm probably going to spend some time. Maybe I'm going to ride down to the southern tips, to Tierra del Fuego, and once I've been down there, probably would like to do a little bit of touring around Brazil. Maybe I've not really given it much thought. I really want to get down and do the race. Riding to the start of the race is going to be difficult enough. I've got just short of 3 months to get all the way down to Paraguay. So I've got to get moving. And then once I finish South America, then I'm going to ship over to South Africa and ride home from there. And my plan is pretty much firm that I plan to ride the Africa Eco race in January 2018 on the way home. So sometime in 2018, I aim to arrive home back in the UK.
Man, that is one heck of a journey. What an amazing trip, though. That's so cool. So once you're back in the UK, what are you thinking? At this point, you've completed races to places. Anything you're setting your sights on yet, or you think you're just going to take a breather?
I might get back to the UK. I might make a detour first. I've got India in mind, and also China now. So there's another loop that might get added in. I might also go home and then just go and do those two in separate trips. But I think I will keep races to places alive, and I'll definitely keep traveling and probably definitely keep bringing media out and stuff. I really enjoy what I'm doing, and if I can keep doing it for some more time, then I will do.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. You're this far into this trip. It's hard to imagine even stopping at this point. I mean, I could, just taking a small, long backpacking trip or a long ride. Once you finally get into it and you're learning, you're living off the road and you're in your element. It's just the thought of even stopping all of that and going back to some other normal life doesn't even equate. So I imagine now that you've started this, you'll probably never stop it. It will always be alive to one extent or another.
Yeah, no, even now I've got so much work to do on the bike. I really dislike working on the bike, and it's hot and there's so much to do, and I've got to leave in a few days. But as soon as I get on the road, there's a smile on my face. I get back into filming and I start enjoying meeting people. and enjoying the travel experience again. And then you just realize why you just put all that effort into getting ready to go again. You know, it's just, it's an amazing experience.
Well, it's got to be sweet to finally get back on the road. Well, you got some work to do on your bike, so I will let you go and get to that so you can get off on the right schedule. Yeah. And man, Lyndon, thanks so much for taking the time to share your journey with us. And I hope you guys go out and check out his YouTube channel. Just look up Lyndon Poskitt, Poskitt. On YouTube. You can look up Adventure Spec. You can find them there. And find that Patreon link as well. I'll put all of these links in our show notes so you can get to them quite easily. So, Lyndon, for your time, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to follow me daily, they can follow me on Facebook. I've got Lyndon Poskitt Racing on Facebook is where I kind of post something every day on there. So a bit more real time.
Okay, cool. We will definitely find that link and get that under the notes as well. So want people to find out who you are, where you are, and how to follow you. So, all right, buddy. Right. Well, good luck on the rest of your journey. I can't wait to see where it takes you, and good luck in the Dakar.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Worried about mom or dad falling? The Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health helps make their home safer, even if you can't be there. Symphony works with voice activation or a care button they can opt to wear, along with smart sensors for coverage around the home. With 24/7 emergency response and an app to tie it all together, you can monitor your loved one's well-being for enhanced peace of mind. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Have you tried the Name Your Price tool yet? It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to find a rate that works for you. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive. Get your quote today at Progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.